The Biden regime is labeling parents as domestic terrorists, and the media is lying to cover this up. Can you believe it, Callum?
Sorry, were they all at January 6th now, or?
Nope.
Okay.
What they were doing is protesting critical race theory being taught in classrooms. You may have recalled, as we've covered on the podcast, there have been heroes of the Republic protesting against the racialization of classrooms through the use of critical race theory. They've been rising up against the indoctrination of their own children into racism, because that's what critical race theory is. If you don't know about it yet, well, you can go to lotus.com and find out more, because we talk about it a lot, because you need to know. Be aware or be next is the mantra. So these absolute chads have been giving them hell, being like, you are not going to teach my child to be a racist. You're not going to segregate the children based on race. You're not going to teach my children that they're bad because they're white, or that the black kids are inferior because they're brown, right? Not unreasonable. Any liberal should be able to be like, yeah, well, why would you do any of those things? And that's because critical race theory is born from Marxism. Anyway, so the school boards decided what we're going to do is write a letter to the Biden regime and say, can you help us with this? And so even places like Newsweek had to report this going, hang on a second, what are you doing? Right? Last week, the NSBA, which is the school board authority, sent an open letter to President Joe Biden calling for his administration to examine invoking the Patriot Act in regards to domestic terrorism. It argued that acts of malice, violence, and threats to public school officials have increased, and the classification of these heinous crimes could be the equivalent to a form of domestic terrorism and hate crimes. They don't list any. They say the claims have been, they claim that there have been attacks against school board members over propaganda and mask mandates, but they don't actually link to any. There's a report that doesn't include any of these threats. Someone apparently made prank calls. One resident in Alabama claimed himself to be the vaccine police.
Was he making it from Nancy Pelosi's phone?
I don't know. We can't confirm. Another guy in Michigan prompted the school board to call a recess because of his opposition to critical race theory. Parents in several states have loudly protested mask mandates and disrupted school board meetings, and Turning Point USA are spreading misinformation that boards are adopting critical race theory curricula and working to maintain online learning by haphazardly attributing it to COVID-19. Not misinformation, but they don't like that. So, as the author at Newsweek has to say here, this would be funny if NSBA wasn't actually asking the feds to prosecute parents who hold widely held opinions as domestic terrorists. Scarier still, US Attorney General Merrick Garland has determined that these flimsy complaints provide sufficient justification to create a task force consisting of representatives from the Department of Justice's Criminal Division, the National Security Division, the Civil Rights Division, the Executive Office of U.S. Attorneys, the FBI, the Community Relations Service, and the Office for Justice Programs.
Sorry, I just remember who the hell Merrick Garland is.
Yeah.
Do you remember Barack Obama trying to make sure he was the nominee, and then, well, Trump was in charge? It was like, what the hell with you?
No, not often.
Because it was so close to the election, and Obama was key to try and get this guy in to the Supreme Court, and he failed because the Republicans held their ground.
Right, okay.
So, this guy could have given him a bit on the Supreme Court.
Yes.
And instead, he's out there shutting down critical race theorists. Helping the critical race theorists against people complaining about it.
Yes. And
I'm glad he's not on the Supreme Court, at least.
Again,
that's
Newsweek,
a position for life.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Newsweek have done a great job here because they point out that the NSBA take a far brighter view of domestic terrorism when it comes from the left. In their 2019 annual conference, they featured a keynote speaker called Angela Davis, a woman who bought and allegedly supplied the shotgun used by her Black Panther lover to kidnap and murder a judge. Her letter to her lover, expressing unequivocal solidarity with his commitment to political violence, is a matter of well-established public record. She was the keynote speaker at the annual conference in 2019.
She's not a terrorist.
She's fine, but parents...
Mr. Smith.
Yeah. Mrs. Jones, who doesn't want her children to become racist, she's the problem. And the NSBA is funded mostly by dues collected from affiliate state school board associations, paid for by local school boards out of the public coffer. So you get taxed to pay this. And so, the Biden regime calls in the feds. We can go to the next one. Merrick Garland got the FBI to work with law enforcement to protect school board members, blah, blah, blah. In his memo, Garland said there's been a disturbing spike in harassment, intimidation, and threats of violence against school administrators, board members, teachers, and staff who participate in the vital work of running our nation's public schools. No evidence for that at all. None whatsoever.
Just trust me, bro. I'm the FBI. We've never lied.
Yeah, what's the FBI ever done wrong? Just surrounded by this general glow. And so Jen Psaki was asked about this by Fox News's Stephen Dooley or James Dooley, Ducey. I can't remember the guy's first name, but she was asked about this on one of her regular press BS sessions. And she initially answered Ducey by snarking at him, saying the National School Boards Association is not a part of the government. And then when he reiterated, well, regardless of the reasoning, threats against and violence against public servants are illegal, and that's what Garland was conveying. And Ducey pressed this, saying, well, hang on, would the administration be okay with the FBI using the Patriot Act to surveil these parents if that's what they decide? And she's like, well, I don't speak on behalf of the National School Boards Association. I speak on behalf of this government. Again, snarky. The Attorney General put out his letter. They will take actions and I will point you to them for more information. So just total dodge. Not go away, go speak to someone else. I'm not answering this.
The answer was no.
Should just say it, obviously. And so there are Republicans who are, of course, not happy about this because, wait a minute, you're saying that our base, the families of Middle America, are a bunch of terrorists because they don't want racism training being taught in their schools? Weird.
Also, I love that it lays the precedent for whenever a Republican gets in, just be like, yeah, so the FBI, we're going to go out today and start arresting all the critical race theorists.
Yes. And
shut them down.
Yeah. And in 2024, when Trump wins his overwhelming victory, just remember they did this. So House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy put out a statement saying, well, look, there has been a disturbing trend in the Democrat Party that wants to silence parents and prevent them from having their say in their own children's education. Parents have a fundamental right to be lawfully involved in their children's education. We should encourage family participation in our school systems, not basically attack opposing views because some liberal education officers and special interest groups see them as a threat to the power they want to have over the children, what children learn in America's classrooms. Exactly. And the thing is, it's not like the Biden administration thinks you are the primary stakeholder in your children's education. Anyway, as you recall, we covered a few podcasts ago where they think that you're an important stakeholder, not the primary stakeholder.
No, you own some percentage, and that percentage is less than 50.
Less than the government's shares in your children.
Yeah, that's a 51 or greater.
Exactly, yes. And so he points out that, of course, this is the latest decision by President Biden is yet another example of him using his executive power to federalize every sector in our society. Yes, obviously, this is the European method of government, the French mode, where everything is by the state. Enjoy that. And then, heroically, like the winged hussars of the apocalypse, the fact checkers arrive to tell them, oh, don't lie. They didn't say it was terrorism. Claim from AP. The National School Boards Association is asking the Biden administration to label parents who protest school policies as domestic terrorists. AP's assessment, false. That's right, we checked the facts. The organization is not asking Biden to label parents who protest at school board meetings as terrorists. What an absolute lie. We have the letter. Like, we can just read the letter for ourselves and get to the next one. Right? The word terrorist is used 3 times in this letter. They say these acts of malice, violence, and threats against public schools officials have increased the classification of these heinous actions could be equivalent to a form of domestic terrorism and hate crimes. As such, NSBA requests a joint expedited review of enforcement mechanisms from a bunch of places, but including the FBI, including any technical assistance necessary from and state and local coordination with its National Security Branch and Counterterrorism Division. Additionally, NSBA requests that such review examine the appropriate enforceable actions against these crimes of violence under the Patriot Act in regards to domestic terrorism and to enforce all applicable federal laws. You effing liars. Excuse me, we're being terrorized. Could you use the Patriot Act in regards to domestic terrorism, please? They're not calling them terrorists. Shut up, AP. You're a bunch of liars. Enemies of the people, that's what you are.
If you enjoyed that segment from the podcast The Lotus Eaters, you can catch the full podcast at 1 p.m. every weekday UK time at lotuseaters.com. You can also sign up at lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content we have on the site.
Yeah, that's how we keep this whole operation running. And recently we've put up loads of great stuff, such as this interview with legendary comedian Steve Hughes, one of my personal favourite comedians, so it was a real honour to be able to meet him. But one thing that I didn't expect, that he would be such a deep thinker, and this podcast is genuinely like a meeting of minds in a way. He was right on my wavelength on a bunch of things and helped me actually connect a bunch of dots, but I'm not going to carry on and spoil it. We also, of course, have lots of interesting articles that have been written, such as this one by Josh about the dumbest country on earth. And for premium, for silver tier subscribers, we also include a link, so it's we have an audio reading of it from a chap called Jonathan, who has a very smooth voice that you will enjoy. And this is great because often I don't have time to read all of the articles we put up, because we've put up a lot of regular content, and so this saves me the hassle of having to read it myself. So I really actually am very appreciative of this feature on a personal level. But we also do the Contemplations and Epochs, which are just interesting podcasts about interesting things. These are regular weekly podcasts. So this one is one of our writers, Josh, he's got a master's degree in psychology, talking about theories of intelligence and how they matter. And of course, we've got the Epochs, where myself and Bo, or in this case it was Josh and Bo, talking about the life of Sir Francis Drake. So that's 2 solid hours talking about England's most notorious adventurer. But we've also got lots and lots of other ones. This is number 21, so there's a good back catalogue there. And finally, we have our book clubs, and this is the part that I'm most proud of. Recently, we've done Shooting an Elephant by George Orwell, and
Reflections on a Ravaged Century by Robert Conquest.
Yeah, Robert Conquest is fantastic. Just if you want Western chauvinist historian, he's your man.
Anti-socialism.
Yes, in all forms, it's fantastic. And like I said, that's what keeps the podcast running. So if you want to become a member, thank you very much, and we think there's some great stuff you'll enjoy.